Runners are often given advice or prescribed particular shoes based on their arch height, the amount of pronation they exhibit when running, or the latest trends like minimalist shoes, maximum cushioning, energy-returning midsoles, and others. There is an abundance of research that shows that these practices are without merit. The purpose of this video is to demonstrate why these practices should be ceased, but also to give more simple reasoning to selecting running shoes. Feet have traditionally been categorized as flat feet, neutral, and high arches. Footprints would look different depending on whether or not you have flat feet, high arched, or normal feet. This led to the so-called wet footprint test. For a long time, shoe prescription was based on the idea that those with flat feet needed motion control shoes that support the arch and are generally stiff. Neutral feet should be placed in stability shoes, and those with high arches have rigid, stiff joints, and thus lack shock absorption, and so they need some extra cushioning, so they are prescribed neutral shoes. The practice of prescribing shoes based on arch height seems very convenient. However, when tested, this method simply doesn't help in reducing injuries. Research studies investigating this practice have found that if a shoe is prescribed based on arch height, runners are just as, if not more, injured than runners who are given a random shoe type. Based on these studies, we can conclude that the practice of prescribing a shoe based on the shape of your foot falls apart when put under investigation. Pronation is an inward rolling of the foot and ankle. When prescribing shoes based on pronation, the examiner is theoretically supposed to measure the angle between the calf and a line bisecting the back of the heel. Unfortunately, this is also a poorly designed method for a number of reasons. Pronation is a normal motion of the human foot and helps us run and walk. Trying to stop pronation may increase the risk of injury if pronation is falsely blamed for your injury. Studies linking overpronation to injury are conflicting and inconsistent. A recent review of the literature found very limited evidence that excessive pronation may be linked with a couple injuries. Unfortunately, many people try and blame overpronation on many injuries, but there are many studies that show no association. There are also studies showing that reduced pronation is associated with more injury, and that excessive pronation is actually protective of injury. The second problem is there are no established rules to follow in establishing this nebulous term called overpronation. Is this too much? Is this too much? Some papers argue that it's not how much people pronate, but the pronation velocity. Other papers argue it's about how long someone stays in pronation. What about the midfoot pronation and supination? Is that important? The fact is, there are no standards. So if someone tells you that you overpronate, what standard are they measuring you against? When you look at a runner from behind to evaluate if they are overpronating, what you are really looking at is the shoe. This means that if a runner is overpronating and someone corrects it with a motion control shoe, all they have really confirmed is that the shoe is not collapsing inward, but you have no idea what you've done to the foot. This is because the foot still moves around quite a bit in the shoe. All you see is the shoe not pronating, but you still don't really know what the foot is doing inside the shoe since the foot moves within the shoe. Many studies have investigated this in-shoe movement and found that there is a significant discrepancy between foot movement and shoe movement. Now, even if you were somehow able to look through the shoe and see how the foot is moving, there is another movement relationship between the skin and the bone. In other words, skin slides over the bone. Studies investigating the difference between shoes and the actual bones have found between 5 and 20 degrees difference between the shoe and the bones of the foot. So when a runner is deemed to overpronate and they are placed in a shoe that controls pronation, you still have no idea what the foot is really doing inside the shoe. All you really see is less shoe movement. 5 to 20 degrees is a lot of movement discrepancy. Then again, if the runner was overpronating, is that really a bad thing? For these reasons, the validity of prescribing a shoe based on the amount of pronation is without merit and breaks apart when put under inspection. Trends have gone in different directions in the past few years. In the 90s, everyone needed to stop pronation. Years later, Everyone needed to go barefoot or wear minimalist shoes. Now the trend seems to be maximal cushioning. There will be fanatics of each trend that comes and goes, but what works for one individual may be harmful to another. There isn't much research on these topics, but what research has been done is always the same. As individuals, we all react differently to a particular shoe, and who will do better in a particular shoe is very difficult to predict. We need to look no further than a typical study in 2012 that compared running economy and runners wearing regular shoes or minimalist shoes. They concluded that, on average, wearing minimalist shoes improved running economy. However, when you look deeper into the study, you will find that some people were less economical in the minimalist shoes. This unpredictable and erratic variability between running subjects is found in nearly every running study evaluating how people react to different shoes, or orthotic insoles. This inability for researchers to predict or calculate how runners will react to different footwear is one of the many reasons we can conclude that running in a pair of shoes for no reason other than being trendy is also without merit. Runners will fall into one of three categories. You should know what works for you and stick to it. Don't buy into the hype of new technology. Or if you do, incorporate those newer shoes slowly into your weekly mileage, and only as an occasional change of pace from the shoes that have worked for you in the past. Try a few different pairs on in the store, and run with them on their treadmill. Go with what feels comfortable to you. That's the most important advice. Go with what you find is comfortable. Don't be sold by the trendy crowd, and don't be sold by the anti-pronation crowds. Don't buy into the upselling of orthotics either. My personal viewpoint is that we should try and run in as little shoe as we can get away with. No more, no less. There is no conclusive research that says minimalist shoes reduce injuries, and no research that says pronation control elevated heel cushion shoes reduce injury. Go with what feels comfortable to you. We have to realize that the shoes play a small role in injury, and your body mechanics and training errors play a much larger role. You need to have a serious discussion with someone who understands running injuries and can look at your movement patterns, running biomechanics, training patterns, and maybe even order blood work or imaging. All runners should wear a few different shoes throughout the week. Since shoes vary in their stiffness, cushioning, and support, the forces applied to the body will also vary. By frequently altering the loads applied to your body, the stress will be moved to different tendons, ligaments, and muscles throughout the week. This should help reduce overuse injuries. For more information on running injuries, biomechanics, and training, please follow Running Reform on Twitter or on Facebook, or visit the clinic website at www.drmags.com.